The move that could change everything. The Warriors did not bring Frank Vogel to Golden State just to fill an empty seat beside Steve Kerr. This move may be the first visible piece of a much larger plan, one that could shake the entire NBA and leave Lakers fans watching their worst nightmare unfold in real time. Vogel is not an ordinary assistant coach. He is the man who guided LeBron James and Anthony Davis through one of the strangest seasons in league history and finished it holding the 2020 NBA championship trophy. He understands how LeBron prepares, how he communicates inside a locker room, how his body must be managed across a long season, and what kind of defensive structure gives him the best chance to dominate in the playoffs. Now that same coach is joining Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr in Golden State. The timing is impossible to ignore. The Warriors are rebuilding Kerr's coaching staff while rumors surrounding LeBron's future continue to grow. Golden State needs a stronger defensive identity, but Vogel offers something even more valuable: championship-tested experience with the exact superstar the organization has repeatedly been connected to. For Lakers fans, this feels deeper than a normal coaching hire. Vogel delivered Los Angeles its most recent championship, only to be pushed out after being handed an aging, poorly balanced roster that never fit his defensive system. Years later, the coach the Lakers discarded is being welcomed by one of the league's most dangerous organizations. And if LeBron eventually follows him to the Bay Area, this story will no longer be about an assistant coach. It will become one of the most stunning power shifts in modern NBA history. The greatest player of his generation joining the greatest shooter ever under a coach who already knows how to win with him. But there is still one major question hanging over everything. Did Golden State hire Vogel to repair its defense? Or did the Warriors just make the first move in a secret plan to land LeBron James? Where are you watching from today? Comment your city or country below. Press 1 if you believe Vogel's arrival brings LeBron closer to Golden State, or press 2 if you think the connection is being exaggerated. Subscribe now, because the next part reveals why Vogel's history with the Lakers makes this move far more personal than it appears. Why Frank Vogel changes the Warriors. Immediately, Frank Vogel's value goes far beyond his connection to LeBron James. Golden State has spent years living through the brilliance of Stephen Curry's offense, but the championship version of the Warriors was never built on shooting alone. Their greatest teams could switch, recover, communicate, and turn stops into devastating transition runs. In recent seasons, that defensive edge has slowly disappeared. That is exactly where Vogel enters the picture. His reputation was built on structure, discipline, rim protection, and accountability. With the Indiana Pacers, he created one of the toughest defensive teams of the early 2010s. His roster did not have the offensive firepower of Miami, but Vogel repeatedly pushed LeBron's Heat into exhausting playoff battles by making every possession physical and uncomfortable. In Los Angeles, he used the same philosophy differently. Instead of forcing one rigid system onto every lineup, he built around Anthony Davis's versatility and LeBron's intelligence. The Lakers could play big, switch smaller lineups, protect the paint, or pressure the perimeter depending on the matchup. That adaptability became one of the biggest reasons they survived 4 playoff rounds inside the Orlando bubble. Golden State now needs that kind of flexibility again. Kerr understands offense at an elite level, but Vogel gives him a second voice capable of challenging defensive habits that have become too comfortable. He can study how opponents hunt Curry, identify where rotations break down, and create schemes that protect aging veterans without slowing the entire team. That matters, even if LeBron never joins the Warriors. But if LeBron does arrive, Vogel would already understand how to build the defense around him. He knows LeBron cannot carry every possession on both ends anymore. He knows the system must conserve his energy during the regular season and unleash him when the stakes rise. Golden State did not simply hire another assistant. It hired a coach who knows how championship defenses are built and how veteran superstars must be protected. The championship that still defines Vogel. To understand why Vogel remains important to LeBron, you have to remember how quickly their partnership worked. When the Lakers hired Vogel in 2019, he entered one of the most difficult jobs in basketball. Los Angeles had just added Anthony Davis to a roster already controlled by LeBron James. Expectations were immediate. There was no rebuilding period, no patience, and no room for early failure. The mission was simple: win a championship now. Vogel responded by creating a team with a clear identity from the opening months of the season. The Lakers defended with size, protected the rim, controlled rebounds, and trusted LeBron to organize the offense. Davis became the center of the defensive system while LeBron controlled tempo and decision-making. Then the season stopped. The COVID-19 shutdown destroyed every normal routine. Players were isolated, momentum disappeared, and the league eventually restarted inside a closed environment in Orlando. There were no home crowds, no travel days, and no emotional rhythm that resembled a normal playoff run. That situation could have broken a team filled with strong personalities. Instead, Vogel kept the Lakers focused. He adjusted rotations, changed starting lineups, and made difficult decisions without allowing the locker room to fracture. The Lakers defeated Portland, Houston, Denver, and Miami. They survived small lineups, elite guards, explosive scoring, and physical interior play. Vogel did not win with one formula. He changed the formula every time the opponent changed the question. That is what Golden State sees when it looks at him. Vogel is not remembered because he coached LeBron. He is remembered because he successfully managed the pressure, personalities, injuries, tactical demands, and expectations surrounding LeBron and finished the job. For a Warriors team considering one final championship run, that experience is not theoretical. Vogel has already stood inside the storm they may be preparing to enter. How the Lakers destroyed their own formula. The strange part of Vogel's Lakers story is that the championship blueprint was not defeated by another team. It was slowly dismantled from inside the organization. The 2020 roster was built around defense, size, rebounding, and players who understood their roles. The supporting cast did not need the ball constantly. They defended, cut, screened, and gave LeBron and Davis the space to control games. After winning the championship, the Lakers began replacing those pieces. Some moves looked reasonable individually, but the overall identity became less clear. Defensive specialists left, size disappeared from important positions. Shooting remained inconsistent, and the roster became increasingly dependent on stars solving every problem. Then came the Russell Westbrook trade. Westbrook was still one of the league's most recognizable players, but his style created an obvious conflict. He needed the ball to attack. LeBron needed the ball to create. Davis needed space near the basket. The Lakers now had three stars whose strengths did not naturally support one another. Vogel was asked to solve a puzzle built with pieces that were never designed to connect. When injuries arrived, the problems became even worse. Lineups changed constantly. Chemistry never developed. Defensive communication collapsed because players rarely stayed on the floor together long enough to build trust. The coach, whose identity was based on defense, suddenly found himself leading one of the weakest defensive groups in the league. Critics blame Vogel for failing to maximize the roster, but the deeper issue was that the roster had no consistent identity to maximize. Golden State has studied that failure. If the Warriors are truly preparing for another superstar experiment, Vogel's experience becomes extremely valuable. He has already seen what happens when a front office collects famous names without creating functional balance. His presence may not only help Golden State attract LeBron, it may help prevent the Warriors from repeating the exact mistake that ended Vogel's time in Los Angeles. The firing that Lakers fans never forgot. Frank Vogel's dismissal was not shocking because the Lakers had struggled. Coaches are often removed after disappointing seasons. What angered many fans was the way the organization handled the ending. Before Vogel had even completed his final game, reports were already circulating that he would be fired. He had not yet addressed his players. He had not been given the opportunity to finish the season with dignity. The public learned his fate before he could fully process it himself. For a coach who had delivered a championship only 2 years earlier, the sequence felt unnecessarily cold. Vogel did not attack the organization afterward. He did not begin a public campaign to protect his reputation. He accepted the decision and moved forward, but the damage to the Lakers' image remained. The front office explained that the team needed a new voice. That phrase sounded simple, but it avoided the larger questions. Who approved the roster construction? Who believed Westbrook could fit beside LeBron and Davis? Who removed the defenders and role players who had made Vogel's system successful? The coach paid the price for decisions made far above him. That history makes his arrival in Golden State emotionally powerful. The Warriors are treating Vogel as a valuable championship mind at the exact moment the Lakers may be losing LeBron. The man Los Angeles blamed for a failed season could now help a rival build its next contender. For Lakers fans, that possibility feels like unfinished business returning in the most painful form. Vogel does not need to publicly criticize his former team. If he helps Golden State restore its defense, reach another finals, or convince LeBron to join Curry, the result will speak louder than any interview. Sometimes revenge in professional sports does not arrive through anger, it arrives through opportunity, patience, and success in a different uniform. The road back through Phoenix and Dallas. Vogel's career did not immediately recover after the Lakers fired him. His next major opportunity came with the Phoenix Suns, another team carrying championship expectations and another roster filled with difficult questions. Phoenix had Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. On paper, the talent looked overwhelming. In reality, the roster lacked balance, depth, continuity, and a true point guard capable of organizing the offense consistent. Once again, Vogel inherited a team built around star power rather than clean structure. The Suns won 49 games, but the regular season record did not protect him when Minnesota swept Phoenix in the first round. The series exposed everything the roster had failed to solve. The offense became predictable, the defense could not control the matchup, and the stars looked disconnected under pressure. Vogel was fired after one season. At that point, his reputation had changed. He was still a championship coach, but he had also become associated with two disappointing endings. Instead of receiving another head coaching position, he moved into a smaller role with Dallas. That step could have felt like a demotion, but it became a reset. In Dallas, Vogel could study without carrying the full weight of every decision. He could contribute ideas, rebuild relationships, and demonstrate that he was willing to adapt. For a former champion, accepting a supporting role required humility. That humility may be one reason Golden State trusted him. Steve Kerr does not need an assistant trying to take control of the team. He needs someone experienced enough to challenge him, but secure enough to collaborate. Vogel has been the head coach, the person blamed for failure, the person celebrated after victory, and the assistant forced to rebuild his standing. Those experiences make him more dangerous now, not because he has more authority, but because he understands exactly how fragile authority can be. What Vogel and Kerr can build together. Steve Kerr and Frank Vogel come from two very different coaching worlds, and that contrast may be exactly what Golden State needs at this stage of its championship window. Kerr built the Warriors around freedom, movement, spacing, and constant decision-making. His offense works because defenders are rarely allowed to relax. Stephen Curry can begin a possession with the ball, give it up, sprint through multiple screens, and suddenly reappear on the opposite side of the floor with enough space to change the game in seconds. Draymond Green can function as a point forward, cutters can attack empty lanes, and one defensive mistake can immediately become an open three. At its peak, the system feels almost impossible to predict, but that offensive brilliance sometimes hides a deeper problem. When the movement slows, when Curry is trapped, or when playoff opponents switch every action and force Golden State into isolation basketball, the Warriors need another way to control the game. They need to survive possessions where the offense does not create an easy answer. That is where Vogel's influence becomes critical. Vogel has built his career around defensive structure. His teams protect the paint, communicate through screens, force opponents toward uncomfortable areas, and make every scoring opportunity feel more difficult than it should. He does not simply ask players to compete harder. He gives them clear responsibilities, specific positioning, and rules that reduce confusion when the pressure rises. One coach creates chaos for the opposing defense. The other creates order for his own. Together, Kerr and Vogel could give Golden State the balance that defined its best championship teams. Vogel's first major challenge will be protecting Curry without weakening the rest of the defense. Opponents have spent years trying to drag Curry into pick-and-roll actions, force switches, and make him defend bigger scorers. Golden State has often survived because Green could erase mistakes behind the play, but that solution becomes harder as the roster ages and Green carries more physical responsibility. Vogel can redesign those coverages. He can use earlier help, smarter pre-switching, selective trapping, and more disciplined rotations to prevent Curry from being isolated repeatedly. Instead of reacting after the mismatch appears, the Warriors can anticipate the action before the opponent fully creates it. That adjustment could preserve Curry's energy for the offensive end, where Golden State still needs him to carry an enormous burden. Vogel can also reduce the pressure on Green. For years, Green has acted as the Warriors' defensive quarterback. He calls coverages, directs teammates, protects the rim, switches onto guards, and often becomes responsible for repairing every breakdown around him. His intelligence remains elite, but asking one aging veteran to solve every possession is not a sustainable long-term plan. A more organized system would allow Green to attack the game instead of constantly rescuing it. Golden State also needs help defending without relying on the same small lineups that once overwhelmed the league. Those groups worked when the Warriors had younger legs, elite wing defenders, and enough speed to rotate across the entire floor. Today, playing small for extended stretches can expose them on the glass and around the basket. Vogel has experience building bigger, more physical defensive units. He could help Kerr use size without sacrificing the movement that makes the Warriors dangerous. That might mean protecting the rim with a true center, keeping Green in a roaming role, or using longer wings to close driving lanes before the offense reaches the paint. The partnership will also require trust. Vogel is not arriving as an inexperienced assistant who will quietly agree with every decision. He has coached deep playoff runs, managed superstar personalities, won a championship, and been blamed when poorly constructed rosters collapse. He has enough experience to challenge Kerr when he believes the team is moving in the wrong direction. That could create tension, but productive tension may be exactly what Golden State needs. Kerr has led the franchise for more than a decade. Many of his ideas have become part of the organization's identity. But long-term success can sometimes create habits that are difficult to question. Vogel gives Kerr a trusted voice who can look at the same roster from a completely different perspective. On offense, Kerr will still control the Warriors' personality, The team will continue to run, move the ball, and search for the kind of explosive sequences that can destroy an opponent in minutes. Vogel does not need to interfere with what already works. His job is to make sure Golden State can still win when none of that worked. Every playoff run eventually reaches a moment when shooting disappears, movement becomes easier to predict, and opponents know every action before it develops. Games slow down. Possessions become more physical. The margin between victory and elimination can come down to one rotation, one rebound, or one stop. That is the environment Vogel understands. Golden State has already proven that it can create beautiful basketball. With Vogel beside Kerr, the Warriors are trying to prove they can once again create the defensive resistance required to survive ugly basketball. And if they find that balance, this partnership may become far more important than any single player Golden State adds during the offseason. The LeBron connection. Nobody can ignore. Golden State can insist that Vogel was hired for basketball reasons, and that explanation would be completely believable. But the LeBron connection remains impossible to separate from the story. Vogel is one of the few coaches who can speak to LeBron from direct championship experience. He understands how LeBron operates behind closed doors, how much influence he carries, and how to establish authority without creating unnecessary conflict. That relationship matters because joining Golden State would require major adjustments from everyone involved. Curry has spent his entire career as the center of the Warriors universe. LeBron has spent more than 2 decades controlling the identity of every team he joins. Putting them together would create extraordinary possibilities, but it would also raise difficult questions. Who controls the offense late in games? How often does Curry play on the ball? How much energy does LeBron spend defending? How does Draymond's role change? Who speaks first when the team struggles? Vogel has already navigated many of those questions with LeBron. He knows when to challenge him, when to simplify the system, and when to allow the veteran superstar to solve the game himself. His presence could make Golden State feel less unfamiliar. LeBron would not be walking into a completely new environment. He would see a coach who helped him win his last championship, a teammate in Draymond whom he knows personally, and Curry, a player whose shooting could create more space than LeBron has enjoyed in years. Still, familiarity alone cannot complete the deal. Money, roster, construction, health, family considerations, and championship probability will all matter. Vogel does not guarantee LeBron's arrival, but in a recruitment decided by small advantages, Golden State has placed one of LeBron's most successful former coaches directly beside Steve Kerr. That is not proof of a secret agreement, it is simply one more reason the possibility refuses to disappear. The gamble behind Golden State's final push. The Warriors are not operating like a franchise with unlimited time. Curry is still elite, but every season now carries greater urgency. Green has absorbed years of physical punishment. The organization understands that the championship window will not remain open forever. That reality makes Vogel's hiring part of a larger gamble. Golden State must decide whether to protect its future or use every remaining asset to chase one more title. A major move for LeBron or another veteran star could give the Warriors a terrifying short-term ceiling. It could also leave the franchise with an aging roster, limited flexibility, and very little protection if injuries strike. Vogel's experience gives the organization a clearer understanding of both possibilities. He has seen a veteran team win immediately when the roster fits. He has also seen a veteran team collapse when star power replaces balance. That perspective could influence how Golden State approaches trades, rotations, and the regular season. The Warriors cannot simply gather famous players and expect history to repeat itself. They need shooting around LeBron, defensive size around Curry, reliable depth behind the stars, and enough athleticism to survive younger opponents. They also need honesty. If the roster cannot defend, Vogel must be allowed to say it. If a superstar combination does not fit, the coaching staff must have the authority to adjust roles before the season becomes impossible to save. That may be the most important reason he was hired. Golden State is preparing for a season in which every decision could shape the final chapter of the Curry era. Vogel brings tactical knowledge, championship credibility, and painful lessons from organizations that made expensive mistakes. Whether LeBron arrives or not, the Warriors are sending a clear message. They are not satisfied with nostalgia, ceremonial seasons, or slow decline. They are preparing one more serious attempt to return to the top. And Frank Vogel may be the person responsible for making sure that attempt does not collapse before it truly begins. The final lesson behind Golden State's bold move: Frank Vogel's arrival in Golden State is bigger than one coaching change, one defensive adjustment, or even one possible LeBron James reunion. It represents the Warriors' final attempt to combine experience, urgency, and championship intelligence before the Curry era reaches its closing stage. Strategically, the move makes sense because Golden State no longer needs another coach who thinks exactly like Steve Kerr. The Warriors need contrast. Kerr brings offensive creativity, movement, and freedom. Vogel brings defensive discipline, structure, and a willingness to win ugly when playoff basketball demands it. That balance could become the foundation of one last championship run. But the Warriors must also learn from the mistakes that damaged Vogel's years in Los Angeles and Phoenix. Talent alone is never enough. A roster can contain multiple superstars and still fail if the players require the same spaces, the same possessions, and the same authority. If LeBron joins Golden State, the organization cannot treat the move like a fantasy lineup. Roles must be clearly defined. Curry's movement cannot disappear. LeBron cannot be forced to carry every possession. Draymond must remain emotionally controlled and tactically valuable. Younger players must still receive trust, because an aging team cannot survive an entire season without depth. Vogel's greatest contribution may be his ability to remind the Warriors that championships are built through sacrifice. Every star must give up something. Every coach must accept criticism. Every front office must choose balance over headline. There is also a human lesson inside Vogel's journey. He won a championship, was blamed for problems he did not create, suffered another painful dismissal, and then accepted smaller roles instead of allowing pride to end his career. He kept working until another serious opportunity appeared. That is what resilience looks like in professional sport. Success does not always belong to the person who receives the most attention. Sometimes it belongs to the person willing to rebuild quietly, learn from humiliation, and return stronger without attacking everyone who doubted him. Whether LeBron joins the Warriors or chooses another destination, Vogel's story already carries, meaning Golden State is giving him another chance to prove that experience still matters and that setbacks do not have to become endings. Do you believe Vogel can help the Warriors win another championship? Press 1 if Golden State is building something dangerous, or press 2 if this roster is already too old to return to the top. Share this video with another NBA fan, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel for the next major update from around the league.